Okay, Painting 2 class, this is your next project. We're going to be doing a project with watercolor and ink wash, although instead of using actual ink, you'll be using black watercolor, as well as some other watercolors. And we'll be doing this on your watercolor paper. Those of you virtual students have a big sheet of watercolor paper and some smaller scraps. Anything you want to do with practicing techniques, use the scraps, use the bigger paper for the actual project. Like it says here, make the project paper about 12 by 16 or larger. And so you won't need nearly that whole sheet of paper, but save some of that for later just in case we use some more of it. So what you'll do is choose one of these images, and there's some images of Elkhart, Goshen, a couple pictures from Italy somewhere, and then there's a town called Somewhere Town, just random towns you can choose from. So you're going to look through all those pictures and choose one to use for this project. Choose one that strikes you and looks like something you can handle. And they've got a lot of detail. All of them have a lot of detail, and it's up to you how much of that detail you include. Let me show you a couple of examples that I have done recently. So this one is downtown Plymouth. It's where my parents live, where I grew up. And so this is just a view down there, down Main Street there. And you can see how it's on watercolor paper. Basically, it's just sketched out in pencil first, and then gray, different levels of value of a black ink wash were applied, and a little bit of color. You can see little touches of color, but not too much. And there's also drawn ink detail with a pen. So that's something you guys will be doing as well. So this is kind of a drawing, kind of a painting. And here's another one with the same process. So two examples that I've done here. And again, you will choose one of these images. You have to use one of these. Okay? I try to give you plenty of choices. And so you do have to use one of these, not one that you find on your own. And so what I'm going to do now is just show you kind of how to start doing this. So on your watercolor paper, you'll sketch it out. So this is just a quick partial sketch of the Goshen courthouse. So you're going to do that in pencil as lightly as you can. And then with your black watercolor paint, you're going to add some water to that so you can get some different levels of value. And any place you want it to be shaded a little bit darker, you're going to paint that in. So I might paint some of that in here, maybe on this, just different parts. And sometimes you're probably going to want to use your really small brush. Sometimes you might want a bigger brush. Any place that you want it to be darker than white, you're going to add some of this wash. And if you want it to be even darker, you know what to do. Just add more of the paint and less of the water. Maybe on this side of the building, it's just darker, so more shadowy. So I might have some darker stuff here. Some places you might want to be really, really light gray, but not all the way white. So over top of your pencil sketch, you're going to start the next step by doing washes of black. Do that wherever you need it to be a little bit darker than the white paper. And you'll obviously spend a lot more time doing it than what I just did here. Then, after that's dry, you'll go in there, and none of this is dry yet, but you go in there and you'll add ink detail. You can even do that before you do the washes of gray if you want. I think it's better to do it after the washes of gray just so you know where there's some shading and where there's less shading. And you're just kind of using whatever line style you want here. If there's some texture, like I think there's some texture on the roof here, maybe some little shingles or tiles, So I might add any kind of details you want with that. And again, that looks kind of weird without having any of the shading. So I would probably have that part shaded too. Any of the little architectural details that you see, textures on the building, edges on the buildings. And that's not just buildings. Some of them have trees, some of them have people, cars. Put as much of this kind of detail as you want on there. And do more than just an outline. Don't just outline the stuff. You want some stuff on the inside too, some contour lines, contour edges. But this will just give you a little bit more of a refined sense of detail. Then, eventually, you will also add some color. And it would be nice if you used a color harmony of some kind. I just have kind of a blue and a yellow for now, so that's just what I've got to work with at the moment. And I want you to choose just certain places to add color. It's not going to be everywhere. So I might do a little bit of blue up on the flag there. Maybe some on the roof. And the color can go on places where you have the gray wash shading, also places without the gray wash shading. Okay, it's just like layers of washes. You're going to see through these transparent layers. And whatever was underneath is going to show through a little bit. If I want some place to be slightly more intense in color, I'll go in and add more of the color. Everybody needs to use at least 2 colors. All right, you have to use at least 2 colors. You can decide where the colors go. You can decide how much. It does not have to be much. Let's go back to my examples. All right, so I've got a complementary color harmony here, the red and green. I think really on both of these is kind of like that. Notice how some places has no color at all. It's just the black and white and gray. And other places has little hints of color. So the trees have some green. Some of the flowers down here have some red. The chimney has some red. And that's really about it. Here I've got the bricks on this building on the sidewalk with some red. Little hint of red here on this canopy. Green on these canopies. The trees. But even the tree, like some of the tree is just black and white, some is color. So again, it's up to you how much you use color, where do you put the colors. Also notice how some of these washes of watercolor, that black, is really dark. So you need to have some black to give some contrast, value contrast. You have white on the paper, that's automatically there, and then just some darker toned washes and medium toned washes.